Hello folks, and welcome to Jack Reviews Musicals. If this is the first time you're seeing my face, my name is Jack, and I'm a musical theater superfan based in St. Louis, Missouri, and this is my YouTube channel where I share my thoughts on all of the musical productions that I go out to see. And in this video, I am going to be talking about Winter Opera St. Louis's production of Gilbert and Sullivan's The H.M.S Pinafore, which played at the Kirkwood Performing Arts Center from November 8th through the 10th of 2024. The H.M.S Pinafore, or The Lass That Loved a Sailor, is one of the most regularly performed operettas in the modern era. Something that is notable about this show is that even though it wasn't the first collaboration between librettist W.S. Gilbert and composer Arthur Sullivan, this was the first one to become a huge hit outside of their artistic home in England. The H.M.S Pinafore would pave the way for Gilbert and Sullivan's later successes, The Pirates of Penzance and The Mikado, as well as many more operettas that are still being produced and parodied up until this day. And after looking more into it, I can safely say that it's for a good reason. Back when the H.M.S Pinafore was first being produced in 1878, it was a paradigm shift for the way that musical theater was being produced in England at the time. That original production was directed by W.S. Gilbert, and he aimed to do something that was really quite radical for the time and present this with the same level of realism that you would for a non-musical comedy. Honest acting performances that don't try to judge the characters that they're playing. No self-awareness or winking to the audience like a lot of musical comedy did at the time. This, combined with the gorgeous music by Arthur Sullivan, the H.M.S Pinafore ended up being a game changer that basically formed the basis for how musical theater would evolve into the modern era. The H.M.S Pinafore is the answer to the reason why I review operettas for this show, because they really are precursors to musicals as we know them. And it just so happens that the H.M.S Pinafore was the first one that did it right. The H.M.S Pinafore takes place in 1878 in the time that it was written. The entire show takes place on the H.M.S Pinafore's quarterdeck, an English warship that has been docked just off the coast of Portsmouth, Hampshire. It is here that we are regaled with the story of Josephine Corcoran. She is the lovely ingenue daughter of the Pinafore's captain. The captain is a kind, firm man who, as captain of the Pinafore, emphasizes politeness and conformity above all else. Captain Corcoran believes that everything and everyone has to be set in a proper place. So to that end, Captain Corcoran arranges for Josephine, because she is of higher class, to marry a higher class gentleman, the Right Honorable Sir Joseph Porter, KCB, First Lord of the Admiralty, the Commander of the British Navy. However, Sir Joseph does come aboard the ship with his 12 cousins and aunts in tow in order to court Josephine. And it is revealed that Sir Joseph is, in fact, a doofus. Sir Joseph has no naval qualifications and no real power whatsoever. He only got to where he is now through persistence, and also through his insistence that he is more wealthy, more intelligent, and more attractive than he really is, which, if you have been paying attention to American politics for the past 8 years, this sounds eerily familiar. But unlike a certain someone I can name, Sir Joseph does make up for his lack of sailing knowledge with, surprisingly enough, a passion for social equality. One person who is inspired by Sir Joseph's views on equality is a humble, low-born sailor, Rafe Rackstraw, who is then revealed to have a very secret crush on Josephine. Rafe becomes inspired by Sir Joseph's philosophy, and he decides he's going to get his fellow sailors to help him summon his courage and confess his love for Josephine, which he does, even though she is already betrothed. And Josephine, at first, is pretty weirded out by this. Someone as low class as Rafe could ever love someone like her. But then she puts it into perspective that Sir Joseph really is revolting and that Rafe's audacity is really quite charming. And so Josephine changes her tune. She and Rafe decide that they are going to sneak off the ship in the dead of night and elope together, all the while staying one step ahead of Captain Corcoran and Sir Joseph. The only person that stands in their way is Dick Deadeye, a disgusting, ugly sailor who is determined to do everything he can to curry favor with Captain Corcoran in a obvious ploy for power. And of course, wacky shenanigans ensue that culminate in a deus ex machina that celebrates the power of love. The H.M.S Pinafore has a very basic comedy premise that's cliched, hokey, and cartoonish. And those are exactly the reasons why this show works like crazy. Those qualities, which would be unbearable if put into the wrong hands, are handled intelligently here. Gilbert and Sullivan wrote the H.M.S Pinafore to be only 2 hours long, which again was radical for the time. The pacing of the story is quick, the comedy is concise and to the point, nothing ever overstays its welcome. It's very economical, not voluminous in jokes, it doesn't try to overwhelm you with wackiness. It really does just focus on setting up a simple comedy premise and following it all the way through, from point A to point B to point C, which, by the way, is the exact opposite issue that I have with Naughty Marietta, Winter Opera St. Louis's last operetta. You can click on the card in the top right corner of the video if you want to hear my issues with that show. But I think the big reason why the H.M.S Pinafore is still successful to this day is because of the jokes and the satire, which are made at the expense of the British class system and also of the idea that people are given massive positions of power, but they are proven utter failures. Those are still ideas that are still very well present today and are still deserving of mockery. And it also resolves itself in such a way that it presents to us a very much needed view of what the world could be, full of gallivanting and full of unconditional love, even for villains and for idiots. And also because, well, it's Gilbert and Sullivan. The music is just fantastic. These are classic songs and classic melodies that, for a show like Pinafore, fit the story and characters perfectly. Now, Winter Opera St. Louis did a couple things that deviated from the creator's vision. Like, there were one or two very strange lyric revisions that contain modern period anachronisms that stick out like a sore thumb that weren't really needed. And there's also a lot of really corny sight gags that kind of got annoying, particularly at the start of the show. But once the show kind of settled into itself with its level of comedy, and how the anachronisms were very few and far between, the rest of the production was quite enjoyable. Director John Stevens staged the show with just as much economy as the writing. He keeps the pacing snappy and the ensemble numbers, as well as the more comic songs, engaging to watch with lots of clever musical staging. And John Stevens also showed a decent level of restraint by keeping the scene songs with the leads mostly still, which is important for a show like this where everyone is a kook and we want to see the lead characters being the most normal ones here. In this case, Josephine and Rafe, who are played in this production by Brittany Hebel and Brian Skoog, respectively, and both of whom gave very fine performances. Brittany Hebel did convincing work of portraying Josephine's inner conflict between her sense of duty and her desire to live a simple, humble life. Brian Skoog, too, nails Rafe's unfettering positivity and naive innocence. Brittany Hebel and Brian Skoog both have great comic timing, and they have great voices with incredible legit ranges for soprano and tenor, respectively. Anytime they have a duet or a harmony together was very pleasant to listen to. Gary Moss as Sir Joseph stole the show. Moss's grasp on Sir Joseph's misplaced confidence was very tight. The comic baritone, the over-the-top posh character voice, and also his very playful movement vocabulary made him a comedy highlight. On the opposite end of the spectrum is Jacob Lasseter as Captain Corcoran, who did really fine work portraying this very restrained, strong authority figure very believably. But Lasseter also infuses the captain with an affability that made the moments where he kinda broke the calm facade rather hilarious, particularly whenever he's around Sir Joseph. Tyler Putnam does an incredible job of making Dick Deadeye a laughably incompetent villain that we love to hate. His singing ability is actually a vocal highlight of the show, blasting out some of the lowest bass notes that I've ever heard live. One character that I haven't mentioned that plays a really important role in the story is Little Buttercup, who is a bumboat merchant that gives resources and supplies to the ship, as well as providing very important backstory details that changes the course of the story throughout the show. Buttercup in Winter Opera's production is given a very buoyant, playful performance by Emily Harmon. There are other smaller roles in the show whose characterizations all around were very fine, with great voices and great physical comedy sensibilities too. There's Joel Rozier as the ship's first mate, Bill Bobstay, Yavi Oyeda as the ship's carpenter, Bob Beckett, and Janelle Pierce as Sir Joseph's oldest cousin, Hebe. And everybody else in the cast, the chorus of the sailors, the cousins and aunts, they were all stellar. Their voices were crystal clear, like you could perfectly make out the Gilbert and Sullivan score without even needing the projected super titles above the stage. And all of them are conducted excellently by the show's musical director Scott Schoonover, who also conducts the beautiful, tremendous 20-piece orchestra. But what really came together for me in this production was the visual design. It all takes place entirely on a unit set that's designed by Scott Lobel. The quarterdeck of the H.M.S Pinafore looked gorgeous, as did the backdrop of the sky. There's even a cardboard moon that lowers down Frac 2, which takes place at nighttime, and the moon itself was lit brilliantly by lighting designer Michael Sullivan, who keeps the lighting for the rest of the show nice and bright. A big highlight for the lighting in Act 2 is the duet between the captain and Buttercup when they're tossing around playing hot potato with a shining bright crystal ball. That was a nice bit of prop comedy there. The props for this production were curated by props master Laura Skroska. The costumes by Jen Blum-Tatara, the hair by Dennis Melambenis, and the makeup design by Aaliyah Burton were impeccably crafted, loaded with colorful detail, particularly in Josephine and Buttercup's dresses and Sir Joseph's uniform. With all of these elements taken together, Winter Opera St. Louis's production of the H.M.S Pinafore was a really nice, really fluffy trifle that was cute. But it was also deftly crafted. Like, you could see, while watching this, how the H.M.S Pinafore would grow to be successful in the modern era, and how it would be the stepping stone for musical theater today. It was one of the first pieces of musical theater that proved that you could have a story that was dead simple and cute, while also being funny and composed with beautiful music that was just as intelligent as any opera score. The H.M.S Pinafore is a nice piece of escapist media, and especially given the last few months that we have had, this was very much needed. There's really nothing else that I can give but a kudos to Winter Opera St. Louis for giving us some good laughs during this time of imminent crisis. Did you see Winter Opera St. Louis's production of the H.M.S Pinafore? If so, what did you think about it? Whatever it is, whatever you think, comment below, let me know, and be sure to check out my website, jackreviewsmusicals.com, to read my back catalog of written reviews. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any more St. Louis musical theater reviews coming very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, long live the musical!